Hi guys, welcome. We're gonna just give it a second for everybody to get in here. Welcome, welcome. Ami, I can't see. Are people actually in the session now?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I got your thumbs up. Okay. Hey guys. Oh my goodness. I feel like so many of you we've met, we've talked all summer long. This is, I think, our fourth or fifth orientation session together. And I also know that we have some families that are returning families, which is great. This year, so much of our move-in information is the same for our new families and our returning families. So I'm really excited to be talking to you guys again. As a reminder, my name is Jenny. I'm the Director of Residential Life. I want this to be a conversation. I have a few simple slides to just go over to kind of re-inform all the move-in information that you've received in your JU email. And then we have plenty of time for questions. So I want you to know that nothing is too small. I remember still like vividly my move in my freshman year. I vividly remember like pulling onto campus and walking up to the front desk of my residence hall and being so nervous. So I want you to know that this is a safe space to ask any and all questions that you might have. That way we make sure you feel really prepared. So first of all, again, you have received some great information in your JU email. So I know, especially for our freshmen, sometimes it's hard to switch over to your JU email. Make sure you're checking that. So one of the things that you were recently instructed to do was a little 3-step process in your housing portal. So I have a little picture of it here. The housing portal you can access through your MyJU. It says apply for housing. Anything that says apply for housing is always going to get you into your housing portal, even if you're not applying for housing. And then what you're going to do is actually select the fall 2020 move-in option. So you can see right here, if you're on a phone, you have to hit the little like hamburger icon and it brings up all these different options. So in that fall 2020 move-in, Step 1 is to sign your new housing contract. So this housing contract reflects the different term dates as they changed. And so it's really important for you to sign your housing contract. That is one of our stops to move in. So if you show up on move-in day and you haven't signed your housing contract, we're going to be asking you to do that right then. So you want to make sure you've done it, saves you time. Step 2 is to choose your move-in time slot. So the only people who do not need to do that are any of our students that are moving in early, which are students that are a part of a specific team or group. So for example, our volleyball athletes are moving in early. So they don't need to select a time slot, but the vast majority of you need to select a time slot. Many of you already have, and that's awesome. Step 3 is to fill out the emergency preparedness form. It's super simple and easy. The purpose of this form is to just help our students and families start thinking through some things. So we have some prompting questions that will help you start thinking, what have you talked through? What do you think you're going to do in these situations related to hurricanes and then COVID? So that's what you can do right now. So let's talk about time slots because there has been some confusion and I think we've had some good conversation about it. Your time slot is your 1-hour window to check in. It's not the amount of time you have to move in and it's not the amount of time it takes to check in, okay? So for most time slots, there are between 20 and 30 people signed up for that hour. So let's say yours is on Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. That means that you can actually show up at Williams Hall at 10:05 or 10:20 or 10:55. It just means you're going to show up somewhere between 10 and 11 and you're going to actually check in. The first thing you do is check in. You can't move any belongings until then. So the check-in itself is going to take between 1 and 5 minutes. Again, if you've done everything, you've signed your housing contract, you should have a really fast check-in. We're going to give you your key and you'll be set to go. Then you have the rest of that day to move in. So you're not just limited to that hour. You might have to wait in line. So again, we're hoping that those 20 people are going to kind of space out within that hour. But there might be a lot of people that think, oh, 10:20 is just the best time for them. So you might have to wait in a line. We are going to be doing that in a very socially distanced way, but just prepare your heart and soul to potentially have to wait in a little bit of a line, just depending on how things go. We're also asking that only the students come for check-in. So we're asking that parents or families either wait outside the hall or in their vehicle or in another location. The lobbies are going to be really filled with this check-in process. So the best thing for families to do is to wait in your car or outside the hall while you wait for the student to check in. We will not have space for students to have a guest with them during check-in. It will be student only pretty strictly. And then I already talked about how we need people to arrive all within the hour. Okay, so what should you bring? So in theory, you've just driven up with your family. You guys have found a parking spot. Your family's gonna stay inside the air-conditioned car because this is not gonna take very long. You're gonna come inside. What do you need to bring when you come inside? First, you need to bring your JU ID. And if you're a freshman and you're thinking, well, how the heck am I supposed to have my ID? We'll talk about that in a second. But for our freshmen and our returning students, you want to have your ID on you, right? That's just a good practice in general, getting used to walking around campus. We need to always have our IDs on us. The second thing is you want to actually have your phone or a tablet with you because there may be things we need to ask you to do. So again, if you haven't done that housing contract, we're going to ask you to pull it up on your phone right then and do it. And there may be some other things. So just make sure you have that. That way you have some access to some of the things we might need you to do. And then your cloth face covering. So the residence halls are places where face coverings are required unless you're inside of your room or inside of a community bathroom where it would prohibit the use of that facility. So you're gonna wanna make sure when you come in for check-in, you have that face cloth covering on. It's a mouthful. Okay, after you check in, the first thing you're gonna do is take your key, go up to your room, make sure your key works fine and dandy, and then you're gonna fill out your room condition form. So this is gonna be a sheet of paper that's on your desk with a QR code, which is just something you scan. Again, you need your phone. You're gonna scan it with the camera on your phone, and it brings up a form that allows you to say that if there's any damage in the room that's permanent that you don't wanna be at fault for at the end of the year. Okay, so coming back to how to get your ID. If you are a freshman, you probably don't have an ID card yet. Maybe you came on campus for a tour and you got one, go you. Otherwise, you have two different options. So option one is before July 31st, you can actually send in a picture for your ID. And if you are a freshman, you should have received an email with instructions on how to send in a photo for your ID card. If you do that by July 31st, then we will actually have your ID card for you at your hall. So when you come to check in, we will actually have your ID and hand it to you with your key. That is a super easy thing to do. Also, honestly, who doesn't love the opportunity to take like an awesome picture of ourselves instead of, you know, how they do at the DMV or security? That just, those are never good. Okay, so this would be a huge asset to you. I think that Ami is going to put some instructions in the chat, but also just look for that email. That way you can look at how to submit your picture so that we already have your ID card ready for you. If you do not do that, or if you're a returning student and you get on campus and you're like, oh, I lost my ID this summer, I just realized it. Security is going to be set up in the Davies Student Commons. So I'm going to show you a map in a second, but what you're going to do is actually get here in time to park in Lot I and walk up to the Student Commons and get your ID there. So we want students to either get their ID or have their ID ready for them before you check in, just because it gets really busy throughout the day. Next thing you know, we're shutting down the hall and you don't have access. So your ID is how you get into your residential facility. So you want to make sure you get your ID. If for some reason you can't send in a picture or your picture was denied, you can just park. It should be a quick process to go into the Commons and get your ID card printed, and then you'll have it right there. Okay, so this is this map that I was referencing. So I want to talk for a second about what this looks like the day of your move-in. So we're going to be asking families to use this main entrance. If you are an expert on our campus, you're aware that there's also an entrance down here near some of these residence halls. This is going to be an exit-only entrance through these move-in days, just to help with the flow of traffic. And we do want people to come in on this main entrance, which is off of Merrill Road. If you're a returning student or maybe a transfer and you're checking into North or Village, you're going to take that first right here. And that's going to take you over to the north side of campus to check in for Village and North. I know most people here are freshmen though, so what you're going to do is just come, we call this going down the hill. So this is Dolphin Drive and you just follow it straight down the hill, and this is Lot I that I mentioned. So here we're going to have some students ready to just check in with you, make sure you know where you're going. They're going to ask about your ID card, and if you do need to get your ID card, we're going to have you park here. And then you can actually walk up to get your ID card in the Commons, walk back to your car, and then we'll send you up along to park for Botts, Williams, and Oak. So here's the thing about parking. We need everyone to work together, okay? So if it is your day, it's Wednesday, it's in the morning, maybe your time slot is 9, you check in, you've moved some stuff, and by 3 o'clock, you're done. Like, you just got it done, you've moved in what you need to move in. We're going to ask that you move your car away from the halls. So there is not a plethora of parking that's really close to the halls. We are going to have carts for checkout, but we do want families to help us. If you are not in that moment trying to move your belongings in, please move your car. The Oak parking garage is right here next to the residence halls. Again, Lot I is huge, or even on the north side of campus, there's additional parking. So we just want to all help one another out and think about the families that are coming on Thursday or Friday that also have belongings to unload and need to try to get close to these halls. So come Sunday, if you're a student and you're like, yeah, but I want a good parking spot, come Sunday, you can do it, okay? You can fight it out, you can move your car back, but we're really asking our community to pitch in and all help with parking during this time so that families can have the easiest access to unload their vehicles. Okay, lastly, I want to mention this return to campus checklist. This is our most recent JU update that you should have gotten from University Communications. So again, if you're a freshman, check that JU email. And it included 3 things. So we're asking students to voluntarily take a test between 10 and 14 days before returning to campus. So if your move-in is on the 11th or 12th, you want to count back. And that 10 or 14 days, go ahead and take a test. That way you have some time to get the results back. We're also asking that you get plenty of cloth face coverings. So I have one right here with me in my office. Other than this presentation where the door is closed, I'm wearing it in the office. And I've started to collect around 4 or 5 of these at this point that I feel like are really good fitting for me that I can wash. And that's just gonna be a part of life now, right? Our life is going to be, I need to put in my earrings and grab my shoes and get my mask. So even though we're giving you a JU mask in your room, that one JU mask is just not going to do it. So really want you to think through how can you have enough masks to function this semester at school. And then the last thing is just to perform a daily self-checkup 14 days before your arrival. Here are some prompting questions. There's other really good information in that email. But those are the things that we're asking students do prior to arrival, which will start really soon. 10 to 14 days is very soon for some of you. Okay, so now I just want to go over questions. Again, this is a really safe space, and I want to know what questions you have. I think Ami's going to help read them off to me. That way I can answer them.
Yes. So first one is an easy one. Can you go back to the map and maybe point out exactly where Botts and Williams are on the map?
Yeah.
Families can take a look.
Yes. Okay, so this is Williams Hall. This is Botts Hall, and this is Oak Hall. So Oak right here, Botts, and then Williams is tucked back.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so question, do students go right to their residence hall when they are going to check in? That's where they check in, correct?
Correct, yes. So again, you're gonna follow that map, you're gonna go down the hill, and we're gonna send you to the residence halls, unless you need your ID. Then we're gonna have you park in Lot I, get your ID, but yes, you are checking in at your specific hall.
Perfect, thanks. There is a question about how many guests can you bring with you to help you move in, and like if that number is more than 2, can those people just wait in the car? Like, can you talk us through the guest policies and what that process is?
Sure. We're asking students to only have 2 guests at a maximum. That is guests in the halls. So again, your move-in day is the day where your guests can help you. So if you signed up for Thursday, that means that your guests are helping you on Thursday. Come Friday, maybe they're still in town. Maybe it's your father and your grandma, and maybe they're still in town, but they're not coming in the halls anymore. So you could use that scenario for your additional guests. If you have 2 guests and maybe you have a third one that's tagged along, that third one just doesn't come in the halls. We're trying to de-densify what's going on in the halls.
Perfect. And when you're going to check in the hall, it's just me, the student, going to check in. And then once I've checked in and you say, okay, you're all good to go, you can start bringing stuff into your room. That's when your guests can start helping, correct?
Yep, that's correct. So you're gonna come, you're gonna pull up, you're gonna park. Let's say you're moving into Bots. You're gonna park in one of the spots that's in front of Bots. And then family guests are gonna just wait in the car, or maybe they wanna stretch their legs and wait outside, but the student is going to be the only one that comes in and checks in.
Awesome. Perfect. That's a great option.
Yeah.
Checking through. Are people allowed on campus before their move-in, but maybe not specifically to the halls if they need to visit other campus resources prior to their move-in?
Yeah, definitely. So, and I would say that's the same before your move-in day and after your move-in day. So we have families that they just come to Jacksonville for a few days. Maybe you're actually here 3 days and your move-in is Thursday, but on Wednesday, you're going to walk around campus, get the lay of the land. Maybe you're going to go to Commons and get your ID card and your parking pass. And then same thing for afterwards. We have a lot of families that the next day they're still in town. They may want to take their student to lunch. We're just saying that they're not in the halls.
Perfect. Questions about COVID test results. And you may or may not have the answer to this. Where do they send either positive or negative test results once they receive them in their 10 to 14 day window?
Yes. So in the student health portal, which I will say I'm not the expert on, but I do know that there is a return to campus questionnaire. And in that questionnaire, it will ask all students, did you take a voluntary test? Yes or no. If you took a test and you are positive, you can communicate that to student affairs by emailing studentlife@ju.edu. If you were negative, you don't need to communicate that. You will be able to say it in that questionnaire in the Student Health Center. You will be able to say, yes, I did. Yes, it was negative. Or yes, I did. It was positive. But of course, we want to know as soon as you had a positive. So you can also email Student Affairs to communicate that.
Awesome. Perfect. There's also going to be an opportunity for ready to return Q&A with academic leadership, and that is going to take place on Tuesday at noon. So if you have specific questions, please join us for that session, and you can find information on our social media channels. There is a question about carts. Are they available to help with move-in?
Yes. So we will have carts and mallets. You will have to check them out. We're going to check them out for 1 hour increments and ask that if you need more time, you come and tell us. You will have to have an ID. So if a parent is checking it out, they'll have to give us a driver's license. So you will have to turn something in order to check them out, but we will have carts. And then mallets, the reason we check out mallets is for changing the beds. So also mallets are cheap. I recommend maybe even bringing your own. You can get a mallet at Walmart for like $2.88. But mallets are just really, really helpful for popping the beds in and out and moving the levels of them.
Mm-hmm. And if you need specific instructions, visit our YouTube channel, which has a great video and example from when Jenny did our residential life session. So would say that. IDs you will receive at check-in as long as you have submitted a pre-approved photo. So make sure that you're doing that early so that way there's plenty of time. If there is an issue, we can get back to you so that you can resubmit a photo. We will ask whether or not you got an approval. And that way, if you do need to take an ID photo, you can do that before you check in the Commons. But if you are good to go, you'll just go right to your residence hall and pick up your ID there. Can we have visitors on campus?
So during the semester, we have a fall visitor policy, which means that we are having no guests in the hall. We're defining guests as a non-JU student. So we will be limiting the halls through the entire fall semester to JU students only. I'm guessing that's what they were asking and not like move-in guests.
Yes, I believe so. Do you have to get a parking pass? Do you also get your parking pass in the comments? Yes, you can get your parking pass anywhere between the Tuesday, August 11th through Saturday, August 15th. You can get your parking pass in the comments. Security will be available. I will recommend please do your vehicle registration ahead of time, which it can be found on your MyJU portal. Click on student and then it will be available there. That will expedite the process, so there's less time waiting. Is a rapid COVID test acceptable? Do we know that?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. The link for the ID photo was not working. There is a link available in this chat, so go ahead and check that link to be able to access the ID photo. If you have more questions, we can also help you. Just email us at newtojU@ju.edu, and we'll be sure to get back to you and help you in that process if possible. Are surgical masks okay for a spare?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're asking for cloth face coverings, and we pointed back to the CDC released a really great article on some recommendations around face coverings or how to even make your own. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome. For early move-in, what do we do about parking passes? I would recommend reaching out to our campus security office, and they'll be able to guide you through that process of what you need to do for early move-in and parking passes. That seems to be all of the questions. Just kind of going through any at the last minute. Do we need to make an appointment to visit campus, or can we just come hang out for the day? I would recommend, if you need a tour specifically, please contact our admissions office. If you're just visiting campus, right now, security is asking what your purpose for being on campus is, and so you can talk about the fact that you're a new family member. You're going to want to make sure you have a cloth face covering and visit our website for guidelines about visitors to campus. So please make sure that you're doing that. Are we required to get tested?
Testing is voluntary. So we are voluntarily asking students to do that testing between 10 and 14 days. Now, there are some groups of students on campus that are being required to get tested, our athletes, for example. So that's something to know, but just in general, we're asking students to voluntarily get tested.
And I think one of these things that we've kind of talked a lot about is like, this is for our community. So making sure that you have a cloth face mask, knowing your COVID test results, those are important things to help keep our community safe. And just like parking when we come on campus for move-in, making sure you're moving your car so that other families have access to move into the residence halls, thinking about our community and making sure that we all can have a really wonderful experience here this fall. Question about what day is our students first allowed to sleep in their residence halls?
So you can come when you are slotted to check in. So what time slot you've chosen for your check-in, that is when you can first come in the halls. So you won't have access. So if your check-in is on Thursday and you happen to be on campus Wednesday, you won't be able to come to the halls. You won't be able to get into your room or see your room. You can first come into the hall on the day of your check-in.
Awesome. There's a question about bikes for the semester. I would recommend reaching out to our recreation and wellness team to inquire about that. Another really great thing is to keep checking your JU email. We will make sure that we send out information about all of these services. In terms of where do students park on campus, there's a great map on the security website to talk about exactly where you can park. There's specific lots for faculty and staff, as well as for commuter students and resident students. So just make sure you're taking a look at that. Will students be able to use their meal plan from the first day of check-in?
Yes, meal plans begin on August 9th. So it even encompasses a little bit of our early move-in. So if you're doing the immunocompromised move-in, your meal plan will be active. And that's another reason why you want to make sure you get your ID card, because that's how you get your meals.
Yes. There was a question about testing for student athletes and whether or not they will be provided. I would highly recommend coming to our session with our university leadership on the 12th or on the 28th, which is Tuesday at 12 o'clock, and they'll be able to answer all of those specific questions. We're going to make sure that we can focus on housing check-in specific questions. Okay, so if we applied for a single room, where do we find out whether or not we got that?
Yeah, so most of the single rooms have already been assessed. I think we have a few left for freshmen that we're trying to get through. You can email housing to check in on it. Once they are completely filled, we're going to email everyone who signed up to say, hey, just so you know, these are now filled. But if you received a single room, you got an email by now saying that you have been placed in a single room and you did get your buyout. So if you have not received that, you have not been placed in a single room, and you'll get an email when they are officially full.
Awesome. If there is damage in the room, should students take a photo or just write it on that condition form?
Yeah, so you can just write it on that room condition form. It's pretty detailed. Pictures are never a bad thing to have for your own records, but in the form itself, there's not a place for you to put in a picture. There's just a place for you to put in a lot of description around each part of the room that we ask about.
Awesome. Do you have to stay on campus after you've already moved in? Like, can we move stuff in and then come back the first day of school?
Yeah, you can do that. We do have all hall meetings on Sunday, and those flyers talking about how to get into those, they're going to be virtual, and what time they are will be in the halls. So just make sure you pay attention to things like that and still check your JU email. But yeah, you do not have to stay on campus.
Wonderful. Okay, that seems to be all of the move-in specific questions. If you have questions that you feel weren't answered in this session, please go ahead and email us at new2ju@ju.edu, and we will be sure to direct your question appropriately.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. We're going to see you so soon.
Thank you.